Welcome to this course Development Economics 2. Today's lecture is Module 9 and today's topic is Gender and Unequal Treatment Part 1. In this lecture, what we learn? We are going to learn deeper interconnections between gender equality and development. Then we are going to talk about the understanding the problems of unequal treatment within household. And next we are going to learn about human capital, the theory of human capital and consequent gender gap. Now, so before we proceed, it is important to clear a few terminologies here, what we are going to discuss in this lecture and in the upcoming lecture. So, as a glossary, some terminologies we discuss here. So, number one, first term is gender. Gender refers to social, behavioral, cultural category and its attributes, expectations and norms associated with being a woman or a man. So it is gender refers to the social, behavioral and cultural attributes, expectations and norms associated with being a woman or a man. Gender equality refers to how all these aspects interact between each other and finally determine the power differential between men and women. Next, the concept of agency. Agency refers to one's own ability to make choices and to transform them into desired actions and outcomes. Next, about markets. Markets are various arrangements in which buyers and sellers interact with each other. They exchange their products, goods and services for a price and they adhere to some norms, and formal and informal institutions can influence markets. Next point is about formal institutions. What are formal institutions? Formal institutions are those institutions and those norms within society that are attached with the functioning of the state. So agencies like or services like judicial services, police services, educational services, health services and basic infrastructure services, all these comes under formal institutions. Informal social institutions refers to the mechanisms, rules and procedures that shape social institutions but do not pertain to the functioning of the state. So the first question we take in this lecture, the first question is, why does gender equality matter for development? Why does gender equality matter for development? So the first issue we are taking up in this lecture is the deeper interconnections between gender equality and development. So in understanding that, we are taking this question, why and how gender equality matter for development? First point is basically the ability to live the life of one's own is a basic human right irrespective of men and women. So that is the first point. That is why gender equality is important as a basic human right. Point number two is gender equality matters and it can improve economic efficiency. Point number three, as we follow the definition of development provided by Amartya Sen, there he is arguing that development means expansion of freedoms, and for whom? For men as well as women. So from the basic definition of development also, we can argue that the idea of gender equality is a core element from our basic definition of development itself. Also, the same idea has been captured by Millennium Development Goals in Goal 3 and 5. Next, gender equality refers to smart economics. Why is it a smart economics? This is because first, by removing barriers for women in accessing education, economic opportunities and productive inputs, it can generate significant productivity gains. So first of all, let us understand why gender equality or promoting gender equality is smart economics. because it can raise productivity and it can boost economic efficiency overall. And the first point is about by improving access to education economic opportunities, productivity can be enhanced. Second point, by improving women's absolute and relative status feeds many other developmental goals, including for the next generation. Improving status of women can improve the health and educational status of the children. Now that is number 2. Number 3, the leveling the playing field. The most important issue, the number 3 is saying the level playing field should be provided for women so that they can exercise their choice, they can take part in social and political interactions. Now, increasing productivity. First of all, let us discuss the issue of increasing productivity. Gender equality can have large impacts on productivity. Why? Because women now represent more than 40% of the total labor force, also 43% of the agricultural workforce, and more than half of the world's university students. So for an economy to perform in its optimal level, it is very, very important to improve women's abilities. For example, by providing same access to women in accessing, utilizing fertilizer and other agriculture inputs, it can increase the yields by 17% in Ghana. Improving women's property rights in Burkina Faso would increase total household agricultural production by about 6%. So these are basically costless ways of improving productivity. Not much resources must be devoted for this kind of productivity enhancement, but just by tinkering property laws, etc., and social norms, such productivity gains can be achieved. Next point is about trade and gender. In international trade, a country is at disadvantage if the country specializes in exporting goods and services for which men and women workers are equally well suited. If a country is exporting goods in which men and women both can contribute, there, if women remain in the disadvantageous state, then that country may suffer in terms of export. Industries that rely more on female labor expand more in countries where women are more equal. Vice versa, countries with an advantage in making products that rely more on women's labor also have become more gender equal. So, by promoting trade, by participating more in international trade, by promoting gender equality, by promoting more labor force participation for women, a country may get the benefit of export, and in turn, export may influence the societal situation regarding gender equality. Next, gender and aging. We have already discussed the troublesome issue of aging in different countries and regions in the world. For example, in China, Europe, Central Asia, right, in different parts, in different countries and regions, aging is a serious issue, and shortage in workforce is also a serious issue. So in these regions especially, boosting and promoting women and female labor force participation can address the issue of temporal or spatial labor force shortages, right? So let us take the next question here. What do we mean by unequal treatment within household? So we are entering to the second phase in this lecture. So far we have discussed the deeper interconnections between gender equality and development, and now we are trying to understand the very important issue of unequal treatment within household against women. So this figure is about household, And this figure is talking about or showing more housework for women. In this figure, if we focus on column 2, that is about housework, and column 3, that is about childcare. So we can observe that in all the countries, women are devoting more hours per day for housework than men, and women also are providing more hours per day for childcare work than men. So that's an interesting and important finding. Now, why unequal treatment is problematic? Why do you think? So, the figure has already showed that unequal treatment towards women is happening within household, right? So now we will try to understand why unequal treatment is problematic. Number one, greater control over household resources by women leads to more investment in children's human capital and raise economic growth. Evidence from different countries like Bangladesh, Brazil, Mexico, UK shows that increasing the share of household income controlled by women changes spending in ways that benefit children. In India, a woman's higher earned income increases her children's years of schooling. So, who is controlling household resources? That has many important developmental outcomes, right? So, if it goes in favor of women, then researchers have argued there are many benefits in terms of children's welfare, children education, health, and overall economic growth. Point number 2, improvements in women's own education and health also have positive impacts on children. Better nutritional status of mothers has been associated with better child health and survival. And also it is linked to higher immunization rates to better nutrition for children. Number 3, women's lack of agency. This part is very important if we understand the issue of domestic violence. We have already said agency means woman's choice. In this context, woman's own choices. So as seen in domestic violence, it has consequences for their children's cognitive behaviors and health as adults. Men and women who experienced violence in the home as children are 5 to 10 times more likely to use alcohol or illegal drugs than those who did not. So observing the problematic issue of domestic violence is has serious consequences for the children. Now, what do we mean by human capital? So next question, which leads us to our next concept, that is to the concept of human capital. What do we mean by human capital? Productive investments embodied in human persons, including skills, abilities, ideals, health, and locations, often resulting from expenditures on education, on-the-job training programs, and medical care. So human capital, so in simple terms, human capital can be understood by investing in humans in terms of providing education, healthcare facilities, medical facilities, and on-the-job training. Now there are dual impacts of the effects of health spending on better education. So more and more or better health provisioning has good spillover effects on educational attainment, and once again vice versa, educational attainment also can influence better medical facilities achieved by persons, right? So there are two-way linkages. Health and education may be distributed very unequally, just as income and wealth, and improved health and education may help families escape from poverty traps. So in developing countries, not just income and wealth are distributed unequally. Health and education, these things are also distributed unequally. So equalizing these distributions also have greater importance for development. And there are gender impacts also. There are gender dimensions also. So this figure is showing age earning profiles by level of education, and this is from the data of Venezuela. The chart shows how incomes vary over the life cycle for people with various levels of education. Those with higher levels of education start full-time work at a later age, but their incomes quickly outpace those who started working earlier. Also, focus on this table and please focus on Sub-Saharan Africa, the countries of Sub-Saharan Africa, and the primary education's private return for primary education, which is more than 37%. In Sub-Saharan Africa, the private return of the primary education is more than 37%. But still, we observe many families are not able to take that much investment to take the primary education. Now, let us try to connect this issue of human capital with the concept of gender, with the gender dimension. Let us take this research on Morocco. In Morocco, a mother's basic health knowledge had a positive effect on her children's health. Several mechanisms are possible. Formal education often directly teaches health knowledge, or literacy numeracy skills which are acquired in schools may assist mothers to gain health knowledge, or exposure to modern society from formal schooling makes women more receptive to modern medical treatment. So mother's health knowledge alone appears to be the crucial skill for raising child health, and teaching of health knowledge skills in Moroccan schools could substantially raise child health and nutrition in Morocco, right? So this way, researchers have found a very interesting relationship between mother's education and child health in Morocco and many other developing countries. Now, why increasing income is not sufficient? So researchers have found, see, there are people who argue that we need not focus directly on education or health provisioning or gender aspects. Just raise the overall per capita income. That will take care of all the problems. But researchers have also found, on the contrary, that increase in income may not always lead to improvement in nutrition. The relationship is not very strong because people may spend their income in various other things, right? And that is why the direct focus must be given to educational provisioning, to health provisioning, and to the gender issues. Now see the educational gender gap. So this is directly connecting the issue of human capital to the issue of gender. There is an educational gender gap, which means men are able to obtain higher years of schooling than women in many countries, right? And young females receive less education than young males in most low-income developing countries. The gap is also relatively large in South Asia. In India, the adult female literacy rate is lower than the male rate. Now, why closing this gap is necessary? The rate of return, number one, because the rate of return on women's education is higher than that of men. Number two, increasing women's education results in better labor force participation, later marriages, lower fertility, and greater improvement in child health. Number three, because women carry a disproportionate burden of poverty, then improving women's educational attainment may help them escaping poverty traps. Now, health and gender, we have shown already educational gender gap, And the similar gap can be observed in the health realm also. Women are often denied reproductive rights. Health spending on men is often substantially higher than that on women. In many countries such as Nigeria, healthcare decisions affecting wives are often made by their husbands. So that's a problem. Female genital mutilation and cutting is a great tragedy, and it has happened in sub-Saharan Africa and Middle East and affected about 130 million women. So before going to take home points, we must note that as a result of these biases, gender biases in education, health, in all these, actually all these resulted the another problem that we have already mentioned, that is the missing woman, right? Higher death rates of women. So as we have already shown that women are receiving lesser years of schooling, right? So the educational spending for women education is not up to the mark and not at par with the men. And similarly, health issues also, in terms of health spending also in various developing countries, women are in disadvantageous positions because of many reasons. Because they lack agency. Often the spending on women's health is decided by men, so there are problems. And also there are societal norms and attitudes that those also go against women, right? And those are these biases, these societal biases also play in terms of health investment and educational investment. At the time of investment in education for women and health related investment, these things comes into play, right? Now we are going to discuss take home points. So there are three broad take home points. We have discussed here deeper dimensions of gender equality. We have tried to connect the issues of gender equality with the issue of development, and we have shown why and how gender equality can promote higher productivity and higher economic growth and promote economic efficiency. And also there are other positive developmental impacts of gender equality, and there are intergenerational benefits of gender equality, which we have argued here. And the second important issue is understanding the concept of unequal treatment within household. So within household, how females usually receive unequal treatment, and those unequal treatment usually manifest in terms of poor health and educational provisioning for women. And the third issue we have covered, the human capital approach to understand gender gap in education and health. So the concept of human capital, the theory of human capital we have touched upon, and we have tried to connect the concept of human capital with gender, and we have tried to analyze gender gap in education and health. Thank you.